So welcome everyone to Postcards from Within, which is being presented by the TR New York Book Club, the TR Women at TR, and the MSP Community Relations group. So we are here to welcome author Sabita Harjani. We're very excited to see her today. I'm going to say just a few words of introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sabita. Sabita was born in Bombay, or I would like to say Mumbai, and grew up in New Delhi in India. She moved to the United States when she was 20, and she's been living here for nearly 4 decades. She's lived in Pennsylvania, California, and for the past 32 years, she lives in Minnesota. She studied law at Hamline University, where she was the articles editor for the Hamline Law Review on the Dean's Honor Roll and graduated cum laude in 1994. She started her legal career at Thomson Reuters in 1995. And she has started up a high-tech company called Burbine. She was responsible for legal and HR functions of startups. She's done a number of different things as far as legal consulting. She was an immigration attorney. And then I'm not going to give too much away, in 2016 had to pause her professional life to move to India to take care of her mother. She's going to talk a little bit about her tenure as a caregiver and what has happened since then, and how she transitioned to her second career in writing. And I have to say that now that she's back in the United States, she has been doing a lot of work for an organization called LifeSpark. I don't know how many people know that. It's a hospice care volunteer opportunity that she's been working with. And it is my pleasure to introduce Sabita Harjani, who some of you know in this room because she did have her early tenure here at Thomson Reuters. And so we're very pleased. And then at the end of the presentation, she will be answering questions, and we've teed her up already for many questions, and then we'll go from there. So I'll turn it over to Sabita.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And I so wanted to be there in person today, but I can confirm that COVID still is around, although not as scary for most of us. I have definitely mended, but I am grateful to Thomson Reuters for pivoting to a virtual event at such short notice, just because it was going to be safer for everybody. And before I commence, I also have one confession. I'm a Luddite. I hope my inexperience with virtual technology will not be too distracting for people watching. My apologies for that in advance. Did it change to the next slide, Tammy?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I want to start with a bit of trivia. And as Tammy already said, that I started my career at Thomson Reuters in 1995 in that very building that's hosting this event today. And I started out in the ground floor. I'm very attached to that building. And another bit of trivia, the events room used to be the good old smoking room in the day. So, but I digress. Folks who have read my book or are going to read it will discover that I have an unshakable faith in the power, omnipotence of the universe. And one of the universe in its innate wisdom 30 years ago decided that I should be placed under the mentorship and tutelage of Tammy Follett. It was one of the most wonderful, happiest happenstances of my life that I was placed in Tammy's group when I started as a reference attorney. This photograph that you see is a photograph from my book launch event, which was held in July at the Weizmann Arts Museum in Minneapolis. Left to my own devices, my launch event would have looked very much different. It would have been a handful of friends at home, a bottle of champagne, and me declaring the book launched. And thankfully, Tammy had different ideas. And this evening was entirely her creation. And it was a magical evening. and very well attended, and I am so grateful. So now to date, 3 decades nearly, Tammy continues to be my most inspiring mentor, my biggest champion, and my dearest friend. Thank you, Tammy, and um, thank you for your kind words of introduction and for hosting me today. Talking about Postcards from Within, it is a collection, a compilation of my introspective journey of self-discovery while I took care of my mother. The only way I can describe this journey is that it was challenging, it was wonderful, and it was an absolute privilege. Just want to talk a little bit about myself, and I will, Tammy has already talked about me, so I will skip most of the stuff that I have here. But I do want to say something that many people may have heard me say before, and that is that I live in a space of gratitude, and I do that because I have an extraordinary life. And I have an extraordinary life not because of anything I have done to achieve or accomplish anything, but of all the people in it. They elevate my life to the extraordinary. And that's what I'll say about me. And there are bullet points on that slide that Tammy already covered. So I'm going to skip that. And that was me in a nutshell in these bullet points. A little bit about Postcards from Within. Postcards from Within is a mother-daughter story of love, loss, and grief. My mother was a remarkable woman, and I loved her tremendously. Life bestowed upon me one of the greatest privileges to be able to care for the one that cared for me and gave me life. Postcard from Within captures this introspective journey that I took. It captures all my thoughts, emotions, observations, experiences, and mostly I came face to face with my own failings and vulnerabilities, and I captured them as I was experiencing them. I'm not unique in being exposed to life. But in Postcards from Within, I express these emotions in my own unique ways. The caregiving years. I came to the United States as a 20-year-old, and I have been here nearly 4 decades. But from the very early days of my being here, I always anticipated what would happen. I always thought about what would happen when my parents became vulnerable. At the time, they were vibrant, but this thought was always at the back of my mind. And I shared the story with Tammy yesterday because I have not talked about this before. But even in my 20s, I used to think about maybe I should start a business. And I'm not alone. I am a first-generation immigrant. And there will be many more. A lot of us are here, and our parents are back in India or wherever else. And what will happen when they all start to become vulnerable? And I also had imaginations of my parents actually running this so that they would have something meaningful to do when they were here. Unfortunately, that dream didn't pan out, but I always anticipated that moment of caregiving. In India, the infrastructure for elder care is not stellar. It's not stellar anywhere, but particularly in India. The traditional model is one of joint families, which is also crumbling. And in a joint family setup, people familiar with it, they know that the parents take care of their parents or the grandparents to their children, and the grandparents in turn take care of the children. However, that model is also crumbling. But regardless, India was just too far for us to manage from here. And my anticipation and that moment of anxiety, it finally arrived in 2016 when my mother's health declined to the extent that she was unable to care for her by herself. And my husband and I made a decision that I would move to India to be with her and that he would handle everything here. So in 2016 March, I shifted to India. My mom had chronic kidney disease. We used to do 16 hours daily dialysis at home. And concurrently, she was also diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And not trivial things, but my mother was such a joy to take care of. She just was one of the best patients. I would not make a good patient, but she was an absolute joy, and I am very grateful for that opportunity that I was with her. Next, I want to talk about why I wrote. Needless to say, it was a challenging time for everyone, my mom, my husband, myself, but mostly for my mom. She was going through so much. And in going through those challenging times, I was being exposed to life. I was experiencing life in a different way that I hadn't before. And I started jotting down these notes. I didn't want to share with my husband or other loved ones because I didn't want them to be burdened by my struggles. I didn't want to share with my mother because I didn't want her to feel like a burden, which she never was. But my sharing my challenges might have made her feel like that. She already used to feel guilty at times that I had moved to India for her, but I just absolutely wanted her to know that it was a privilege for me. And then I discovered I had an outlet in writing. So as I was experiencing the emotions that have been captured in postcards from within, I would in real time capture them. And then I had a lot of material. And life was teaching, I was learning. I did not want to lose those insights that I was gaining, and somewhat in a tough sort of an environment, a tough classroom. So I started writing, and that's how I wrote. And one of the biggest insights and gifts that life presented me with is this quote that I share with you. It is that not all challenging times are bad. They are just tough, and they can even be the best of times. This period of nearly 5 years that I had with my mother was absolutely phenomenal. I would not trade a single day of it for anything, even though it was one of the most challenging times of my life. Next, I want to talk about why I chose to share or publish Postcards from Within. I had written, when I was capturing these thoughts and moments, I was just writing with an audience of one in mind, me. I didn't have an audience, I was just writing. And when I came back, I shared a few thoughts with a few friends, my husband, and they liked what I had to say. And also love, loss, grief, all these emotions that are captured in the book are not unique to me. I am not unique in being exposed to life. And so I wanted to share with others and hope that others going through challenging times, whether a caregiving journey or otherwise, might find a shared experience and might feel less alone on their own journeys. And people who have not gone through this journey similar to mine may have a different perspective on life. And therefore, I share myself, warts and all, with everybody. And the more compelling reason, perhaps, why I chose to share was my mother's blessing. During the time that I was with her, she would see me engage with my phone, and she'd figured out what I was doing. She was a very intelligent, thoughtful woman. And on occasion, she would say, "Share with me what you wrote." And I would. And she would contemplate and engage me in philosophical discussions, often challenging my fundamentals. And as her time drew near, she started to withdraw within herself. And I am now taken back to the day before she passed away. I was sitting by her and jotting down in my journal, my phone journal. And I was thinking, what I wrote was, perhaps there was something lacking in my care of you that you're no longer talking to me. I apologize. It's been a while. Still, I get emotional every time I think of that. So please excuse me. But, and when she saw me writing, she beckoned to me and placed her hand on my head and said to me in Hindi, "Tu lik," which means you write. And those were her last words to me. And those were also her last words ever. And she has delivered on that blessing in the form of this book. So that's why I chose to publish and to share my thoughts with everybody. I would now like to read a few passages, some excerpts from my book. The first one I call Role Reversal. And let me just find my book here. I never had biological children of my own. I've been very lucky that I have the love of a lot of people from the next generation, nieces and nephews. But my mother gifted me the experience of motherhood when I took care of her. This first poem is Role Reversal. Watching a parent fade is the opposite of watching a child grow. Ma fades and extinguishes a little every day. She is my baby now. Ma experienced a labor of joy when she brought me into this world. I experienced a labor of sadness as I helped her exit this world. When I was little, Ma exclaimed, "Oh, look, she can stand on her own now." When Ma was 85, I exclaimed, "Oh, Ma can't stand on her own anymore." Ma said about me, she ate her first solid food. Today, she's growing up so fast. I said about Ma, she can't eat solid foods anymore. Let's try liquids, maybe she'll be able to swallow. Ma was so excited. My baby is responding. She is starting to understand language. I was so sad. I think Ma is starting to lose comprehension. She is staring at me blankly. Ma called my father and gushed. Our baby has said her first word. I called my brother and said, our mother has forgotten her first word. Ma exclaimed, "Yay, Poopy's on her own for the first time." I asked Ma, is it time to have a conversation about diapers? Ma exclaimed with joy, "It is so exciting to watch her grow every day." I whispered with pain, "It is so sad to watch her extinguish a little every day." Ma said thoughtfully, "Before you know it, she will be all grown up and will leave me." I said with grief and finality, "Before you know it, she will have extinguished and left me." Thank you. The next poem I call The Land of Gods. And I think it's not a poem, sorry, a passage. And it's one of my favorites because I wrote it at a time when people were blessing me and calling me a good person, calling me a good daughter. And I started to feel good about myself. So this thought occurred to me during that emotional setup. The desire to be good is compelling in most people. Everyone likes to be thought of as a good person. Being good is not always easy. Every once in a while, I succeed at being good and then feel good about it. One day I died and reached the land of gods. To borrow from Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling, upon arrival, I was ready to be sorted into my future place of existence. At the high table were seated Buddha, Shiva, and Jesus. Playing McGonagall's part was Lord Krishna. He placed the sorting hat on my head. There are 3 houses in the karma school of humans and humanity: heaven, hell, and earth. As soon as the hat was placed on my head, it said, difficult, very difficult. I see a lot of good, but where to place you? Not hell, I kept muttering. Not hell, you say? You will have fun there. A lot of your friends are there. But if you are sure, better go back to earth. Because better go back to earth, sorry. Because even though there was good, you were aware of the good. There was some arrogance and holier than thou attitude. You felt superior about being good. Earth it is. Maybe next time you will just do good for the sake of it and not be superior about it or judge others. You are not there yet. Back to earth I came. Wah, wah, a new baby is born. And so that's how reincarnation works. And for me, the journey commenced anew. Maybe I will do better this time. The next passage I want to read is my evolution as a caregiver. When I started caring for Mom, she placed her whole life in my hands. She just trusted me 100%. And I felt the weight of that responsibility. And in the early years of caregiving, I was a very firm caregiver. And I, by the book, by the rules. But as her time drew near, and sorry, I was a firm caregiver because in my attempt to do the best for her and avoid mistakes, I just wanted to follow all the rules. But as time for her to depart grew near, I evolved as a caregiver. I apologize. I have so many monitors and books and papers, so please bear with me. So the next passage I read to you is my evolution as a caregiver. I evolved as a caregiver over the period of 5 years that I cared for Ma. One of my more insightful insights was that the cure cannot be worse than the disease. When I started caring for Ma, she was very alert and normal in every way, other than the fact of her disease and the necessary care for it. She placed her life in my hands, she loved food, and we put her on a strict diet. One morning, as I consumed an entire bowl of nuts, one of Ma's favorite things, I remembered that I would give her 2 cashews and 2 almonds and no more because they were not good for her. Then, as time went on, her health deteriorated to a point where she could not eat anything. At this point, it dawned on me that the cure was being worse than the disease. I took all rules off the table, and in 2020, the last year of her life, I begged her to eat anything that her heart desired, and her heart desired nothing. I hope and pray that I did right by her. I love you, Ma. Please forgive me if I made the last few years of your life harder than they should have been. Thank you. This is Ma and me. This is the woman who gave me life. This is the woman I still love and adore. This is the woman I miss every single day of my life. This is my mother, Kanta Gupta. My hope for Postcards from Within, I feel so blessed that a lot of people have written to me now that the book has been out a little bit and shared their experience of the book with me. And I want to share some of those thoughts with you. A friend wrote saying, certain passages, they resonate so true to me and have made me realize I was carrying guilt about my own caregiving experience. It is comforting to read you had similar thoughts. Another friend said, thanks for giving my thoughts words. A cousin sister wrote to me, as I start reading, I could visualize you and Ma talking. I think instead of Ma, we should call her Guru Ma. Someone else said, when I start reading, it seems as if you're reading for me. Another cousin said, this is the symbol of the largest of human emotions. You have effectively distilled what you learned and understood in those 5 years. I share these thoughts from others with you, not in an attempt to claim that I have written a masterpiece or a classic literary work, but in fact, the opposite. Postcards from Within is a very, very basic book of very basic emotions written very simply. And my hope is that it may like I said earlier, that people may find a shared experience and feel less alone on their own journeys. When I was writing, this poem that I want to share with you next is a compilation of thoughts from over the years. I would jot down one line or an insight that occurred for me, and then I collected them and compiled them into this poem called Life is Teaching and I Am Learning. It is on page 110 of the book. Life is teaching and I am learning. I am learning that not all challenging times are bad times. They can even be the best of times. I am learning that the more I complicate things, the more complicated they get. I am learning that sometimes I have to win by letting others win. I am learning that when I am committed, life finds a way of supporting me. I am learning that when I focus on how unfair life has been, I miss all opportunities to be grateful. I am learning that the moment I put myself first, it's game over. I am learning that I don't have to be the best, but I do have to do my best. I am learning that I can only do what I can do. I have to let go beyond that. I am learning that when I think about exhaustion and fatigue, I get tired. I am learning that adversities are worthy of my undying gratitude. They transform me. I am learning that the darkest moment is the brightest opportunity for growth. I am learning that to be needed is a blessing, to not need an even bigger blessing. I am learning that all any one of us wants to do is to actually make a difference. I am learning that there is a lot of freedom in not having a choice. I am learning that as soon as life feels bad, look for a lesson. It's always there. Thank you. The essence of Postcards from Within. The key takeaways, so to say, is, and I have been talking about this all through the presentation through different slides, but to summarize it all here, the shared experience, the shared journey. And as I said earlier, these emotions are not unique to me. Life happening to us is not unique to me. And my hope is that people reading this on challenging journeys will find a shared experience and feel less alone on their journeys. Another thing that I got out of this journey was my humanity. I don't think anybody could have loved my mother more than I did. And despite that, my human limitations, I would experience anger, frustration, sadness, FOMO, as they say now, fear of missing out. I was in India, life was happening here, my life was happening here, but I was missing from it. So these were my humanity, my feelings arising out of my human limitations, but they did not reflect a diminution in my love for my mother. So I want people to get that it is okay to be human, and you just accept that and you move on and do what you need to do. The other thing that I get is that the uniqueness of our circumstances will determine how we show up for our loved ones. What I have shared with you is my journey, and that's how it unfolded for me. And there is no right or wrong way to show up for your loved one, and our circumstances will dictate how we show up. And any which way that we show up is right for our life story. I want people who are being cared for to know that they are not a burden. They are being cared for because they are loved. And I know my mom did guilt on occasion, as I mentioned earlier, but it was an absolute privilege to take care of her, the one who gave me life. And for everybody, I will repeat the insight that life gave me was that not all challenging times are bad. They're just tough. They can even be the best of times. So this is the essence of Postcards from Within as I see it. And some of you may have heard me say this before as well. Tammy made me do the slide because there is one very important person I'd like to acknowledge without whom Postcards from Within, the journey or the book would not have happened. My husband, Ramesh Ardani, and ours is a 40-year-old partnership, and he supported me every which way, every step of the way. So I am very grateful. And I thank you all for being here today and for bearing with me and my inexperience with this technology. And I will hand it over to Tammy, but I want to thank you all and just say that my journey of extraordinary life continues because you are all part of it now. And I thank you very much. Tammy, I'll stop sharing now.
Okay, thank you. So we have, yes, thank you, Savita. Excellent job. Thank you. We have a number of different questions. We had some that we set up for you before, and so we'll address those now. And then for the people who are online, please feel free to put your questions in chat. The first one, well, this is my question. Will you please tell the audience who was the famous person that you met in the airport in India who read your book?
Thank you, Tammy. And the power of the universe, I'm telling you, it is the omnipotent universe. And I was sitting at Delhi airport a week before the book launch, and I spotted Dr. Deepak Chopra. And I really, really, even before I had spotted him a month before that, I had thought it would be really nice if I can send a book to Dr. Chopra. And I spotted him, I ran after him, and I presented him with my book, and he was so gracious and kind. He accepted the book, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought that would be the end of it. But a few days later, he was so gracious. I'm just still blown away by this, that he emailed me, and I really felt so blessed and very encouraged by the fact that he wrote, and then I wrote back to him saying thank you, and I've been keeping him informed, and I get very short messages from him, but I get messages from him. Thank you, Tammy.
Welcome. That was the universe telling you to run after him at the bar, right?
Yes, absolutely.
The next question, and Jen asked this before, have you made the full transition lawyer to author?
I have made the full transition. Hi, Jen. I have made the full transition out of the legal profession. And I am, I think, making a transition into being a full-time author. And Tammy's also responsible for that. So thank you, Tammy, because you're guiding me. And now this is my job. This is my career.
There you go.
So yes.
The next question was asked over here. Where did you get the strength to write the book?
Thank you for that question. I always dreamt I would write a book, but I did not set out to write Postcards from Within. I just wrote because that was the only outlet I had, and I wanted to just write. Not being able to share the thoughts and the feelings, writing gave me an outlet. It captured that, and it felt like, okay, I started writing to life because it became a persona, and I was able to share my innermost thoughts with life. So I didn't set out to write the book. So I don't know how to answer that in terms of, but I did need courage to share it with people because they are my very innermost thoughts. And when I was writing it, I wrote for an audience of one me. So I was never afraid of being judged or what people might say or think. But then when I put it in the form of a book, I think, again, the universe, the right time, my mother's blessings, friends, and now we have a book.
Someone asked, I think it was Jen again, how did you come up with the name Postcards from Within?
Thank you, Jen. I was going to say it in my partnership slide, but I saved it because it was a gift from Ramesh. So when I came back from India and I started sharing snippets of it with him, with a handful of friends, and he was looking at it, and one day he just said, Postcards from Within. I had come up with Random Ramblings of an Ordinary Human, which became the subtitle for the book. But the credit for the title of the book is his. He came up with that title, and it was just, I thought it was perfect. It just fit.
And can you share a little bit about what has been shared with you at the launch about Postcards from Within and your culture?
Oh, about how integral postcards were. They were part of the Indian uh, culture. Indian people kept in touch. Good news, bad news, birth news, death news, everything was communicated through postcards. And so it has a very huge relevance and significance, as Dr. Wright, who did the introduction at the launch, talked about. So it's a very important concept historically in our culture.
Right. And then can you talk a little bit about who did the illustrations on your book?
Yes, absolutely. Arushi Mittal, she is, I think now a second year art student, fine art student at the University of Chicago. And she is part of my extended family. Her grandfather and my father were, am I allowed to say besties? Because in their generation, nobody would have said that. But they were really, really two men, very stoic, but best of friends. And so our families are very, very close. And I was talking to her father one day when I was complete with my book. I wanted to ask him, I wanted somebody who had some concept of India and a Western sensibility. And I asked him if he knew of any artists, and he said his daughter. And then I connected with her, and she was just absolutely brilliant. I think she's created the most beautiful cover, even before people can get to my words. They see the book and they want to pick it up. And I am very grateful to Arushi for that.
And you see the cover for everyone who's online. You see the cover behind Savita, Postcards from Within. Yes.
And thank you, Pario. I don't know if she's there, but for making this for me.
Yes. We have a question on chat as well. What advice do you have for us aspiring authors? I'd love to write a book someday, but just don't know where to get started.
Thank you for that question. As I said, I think fear is one of the biggest impediments to writing. And I think it's fear of being judged, because if you're contemplating writing, you have an interest in writing, you're probably a good writer. But when we start writing and then write for an audience of one is what I told one of my cousins who's a very good writer, but he just can't start. And so all the editing and the putting together, the marketing, the sales, all of that will come, but you got to have a book. And so just write for yourself, write uninhibited. And I know there are a lot of books on writing, which I didn't read, and how to write. And I know I've always had this dream to be a published author. And I remember in 2001, I remember the moment I saw this book, very small book. I don't remember who the author is, but the title was very catchy. And it said, Thinking About Writing is Not Writing. And I bought that book because I used to think about writing all the time, but I was not writing. And every time I would think about writing and I would say, okay, that's what the title of that book is, I'm not writing. So I think what worked for me was that I set out to not write a book. I set out to just write, and then it got converted to a book. And that is not to say that you shouldn't set out to write a book, but I think you should set out to write a book for an audience of one, so you can write uninhibited.
Thank you. I wanted to show some of the people, I don't know if they can see it, and you might be able to do a better job of showing some of the illustrations that were in the book. And a lot of these have been taken from pictures that were taken by your husband, Ramesh Harjani, and she did a great job of doing the illustrations.
Absolutely. Arushi was just phenomenal. She and she took multiple concepts and put them together. For example, the Harry Potter one. I don't know if, is this visible, Tammy?
Yes, that's good. It looks good.
Yeah. So, you know, so these are like 4 or 5 different concepts, and she just put it together perfectly. I couldn't have made a single change or asked for anything different or better. And I'm just really grateful that our partnership was just excellent.
Do we have more questions? Yes.
You have the question up there. What advice do you have if you're starting caretaking?
What advice do we have if you're just starting the caretaking journey? Thank you. My parents are getting older and I've been in ill health, but I'm just starting this journey.
Yeah, I would say, you know, just show up however you can. Your circumstances will determine what you are able to do. Their circumstances will determine what it is that they need. And an open conversation with them as to what their wishes are, what can be done, what's practical, you know, having practical conversations with them. And my mother and I, we were really good friends, and we could speak openly about so many things, and that was really, really helpful. And you know, when I shared about my humanity, about getting angry or just getting frustrated, to just own that and very quickly clean that up and just say, I'm sorry that happened. And then that gives you space to move on, which will happen a lot. And I don't know how far they are or how close they are, but every journey, even though the story is shared, it's the same, but every experience will be different depending on your circumstances. But just be there, and that's all that I think is required.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yes, we have another question. Carol? You want to come up? Can you come up here, Carol, so people can hear you?
Just along the lines of the question you just answered, Savi. This book, so both of my parents are gone, and my sister as well. I was caretaker or caregiver for them for much of their and exit. This book, if I had had it ahead of time, you only get to go through it one time with somebody leaving. With this book, you get kind of a sneak peek into it. So it's almost like you are better prepared when it happens to you. So it gives you the opportunity to experience and think about the feelings that you're going to have, and so that you recognize them when you are in that space yourself. So that's one thing I really thank you for, Savi, for bringing this book to us.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for that.
Great. And one thing I wanted to say is that one thing I do is I gift this book to anyone that I know who is going through a loss of a parent, a child, a partner, a spouse, or anticipating it. I can't think of a better gift for me at this point in my life to be giving out, because I feel like I'm giving something that will have an impact on there and they can use, right? So on that note, in the back of the room, because we're in person here in MSP, we do have books for sale. And then if you want something special written on that book, they are all signed. Let me know and I can touch base with Savita. For the people who are online, we will provide the information for you. Savita has a website, www.savitahajani.com, but we'll send it to you. And you can purchase books there. Someone was showing me earlier today that her book is doing very, very well on Amazon. So congratulations,
Thank
Savita.
you.
We are so thankful that you're sharing your story with us, and you brought it to not only this in-person group, but also virtually as well. And we thank you for that. And on behalf of the New York TR Club and the book club here and Women at TR and Community Relations, we thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you, everybody, for being here and listening to my journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Should I exit?
I will stop recording.